Yeah.
They do. I'm
Okay, we'll
sorry.
call the March 28th meeting of the Planning Commission to order. We'll begin with the pledge to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jess, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Varga.
Here.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Here.
Mr. Perkovic.
Here.
Mr. Sidoti.
Here.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Here.
Mr. Snow.
Here. Approval of the minutes of the March 7th meeting.
Move to approve?
Second.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes. Item 2 is tabled tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
Dismiss.
Do we have to dismiss it?
Dismiss, I'm sorry.
Dismiss.
Dismiss.
We'll dismiss it when we get to it. Public hearings this evening, there are 2 public hearings this evening, since number 2 will not be discussed. The format we follow for the public hearings is we allow the applicant an opportunity to tell us what they want to do at a particular location. Then those wishing to speak in favor are afforded an opportunity, then those wishing to speak against are given a similar opportunity. Then we close the public portion and allow for questions of the administration and the planning commission. So with that in mind, the first public hearing this evening, a conditional use permit to allow medical offices of similar use at 6101 Heisley Road. Is that applicant here? Would you come forward and identify yourself for the clerk, please?
Good evening. My name is Anthony Slyman. I'm representing 6109 Heisley Road LLC, the building owner.
Okay.
Hi, and I'm Dr. Jennifer Greer. I'm the building tenant.
Okay. So give us a quick overview of what you'd like to do at that location.
So historically, that location has been, several things over the last several years, one of which was most recently Bixel's Hair Salon and Day Spa. Prior to that, it was a skincare facility and spa. Prior to that, a couple of uses. At any rate, Dr. Greer is looking to keep her business here in the city of Mentor, relocate to that space, and do very much the same type of services,
As we're there.
as we're there, correct?
Okay.
Yes. Very much the same uses.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against? Okay, we'll close the public portion. Kathy, anything from the administration?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman, other than the conditions noted.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add?
I just want to clarify that this will in no way be a surgery center. It's purely office procedures like mole removals, laser, skincare, things like that.
So Mr. Varga can show up?
I don't see why he would ever need to see me, but he's welcome to.
So, Commissioner members, any questions for the applicant or the administration? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion with the 2 conditions.
Second.
Just when you're ready.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes. It was painless.
Thank you very much.
Okay. As I mentioned, number 2 is dismissed, right?
Yes.
With or without prejudice? Larry?
Without.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to dismiss item number 2 on tonight's agenda without prejudice.
I second it.
Just when you're ready.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes. Conditional use permit to allow outside dining and/or drinking at 7850 Menor Avenue. Is that applicant here? What color is the building? I said, what color is the building? I'm kidding.
No, it's light gray.
I'm kidding. Go ahead.
So this is for the outdoor dining area. We're proposing we add a patio on the side of the building. It's approximately 8 feet in depth, and that would allow the 5-foot sidewalk to continue past the building. And I believe that's all this conditional use is for.
I need your name for the record, please.
Randy Parsons with MPG Architects.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against? Okay, we'll close the public portion. Kathy, any comments from the administration?
Nothing other than noted in the proposed condition.
You've read the staff report, so
Yes,
you're
sir.
familiar with the conditions.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant?
I have a question. The three-season dining space, that's new to the plan.
Yes, sir.
How much space is there? I can't tell exactly. I could do the math maybe. How much space is there between the face of the building and the curb for a walkway?
I believe there's 5 feet.
Okay. Can you just tell me a little bit about that space, since we haven't seen it before? How that's going to work?
That's a space that allows overhead garage doors to be opened and when the weather's permitting, and allow people to sit out in like a 3-season type space, like you see on most restaurants today.
And it's completely enclosed in metal construction?
Yes, correct. So it's, it's, the sides are all standing seam metal. The roof is a standing seam metal. I've got a sample of the metal over there. It's, the colors, the DMI metal product.
Was there any thought about, if we could go back to the previous image? There, yeah. Was there any thought about bringing some of that, I guess that's in the background, is that stone? Is there
There's
any
stone along the bottom there, and then you have vertical metal panel above the
above
stone.
it? Yeah. Had you had any thought about bringing that stone around?
Trying to keep a little bit of a contrast on the building, and so we've got the stone on the building and letting this be its kind of like own little element that pops out from the face of the building.
Yeah, okay. Well, okay, go back again.
Which this also ties into the owner's brand standards that we've generated for him for several other locations that he's going to have in Northeast Ohio.
And the doors don't, it looks more clearer here. The doors do not go down all the way to the ground. They
That is
stop at
correct,
the
they do
sill.
not. So you're not going to have patrons walking out with drinks or what have you.
Okay. All right, that's all.
Okay. Any other questions, commissioners? Any additional comments from the city? No? Entertain a motion.
This is for the conditional use permit.
Yes.
Motion to approve the CUP with 4 conditions.
Second.
Just when you're ready.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes. Okay, we'll see you in
Thank you.
a couple minutes.
Right.
Number 4, under old business, is that applicant here? Come forward, and I'll entertain a motion to take it off the table.
So moved. I'll second.
Yes?
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes. So you met with the county, and give us the results of that meeting.
Yes, I met with the county. I got a letter saying we have sewer access. I either got to do a force main going into the existing manhole there, or go the other way across the creek to King Memorial. But I have already talking to a couple of those property owners, and they didn't want to let me go that way, so well, I probably would have to go the force main into that existing manhole.
Okay.
And the Lake County engineers just gave me a letter saying it would be okay to change the guardrail. I just have to pertain to their rules and regulations. Guardrail.
Kathy, anything from the administration?
Well, we've been working with the applicant, and we've had conversations with the county. We feel that, we took a look at the surrounding parcels. There are some other non-conforming parcels in the area. It is a unique lot. The house that's already in place is non-conforming from a setback standpoint. And the parcel to the east is also a non-conforming lot. And we certainly don't want to encourage non-conforming lots, I guess, considering the effort shown and the ability to build on the lot, and with the conditions noted, if, you know, if one of these models are in fact designed and built, it would be a conforming house to all other aspects of the code. The non-conforming aspect of it is minimal from an acreage standpoint. It's not a significant amount. So, you know, while again, in practice, we don't normally want to encourage non-conforming lots, I think in this instance, we don't necessarily object based on the specific parameters that have been provided by the applicant for the house style, and the efforts that have been reviewed by the county to show that it can be a conforming house if built properly. So,
I know there was some talk at one time about the basement scenario.
yes, and then, thank you for reminding me, the applicant reached out to our chief building official today. One of the conditions that was noted, which came from our chief building official, was that there shall be no basement built as part of the building permit. The applicant had requested if it was built at or above existing ground level, would that be acceptable to the chief building official? And Mr. Decker indicated that would be acceptable.
Okay. Is that fine with you?
Yes.
Okay. Just so you're aware, when Whalers Cove went in, some of those houses were built without basements because the aquifer was so high in that area. So I know that that was a concern that existed here with your particular piece of property. So we just wanted to clear the air a little bit on that.
Right.
So
Let me ask a question.
go ahead.
Is it your intention to build it with a basement, or a basement space, a lower space?
Yes, I would like to.
Tell me if I'm wrong, and I'd like the city maybe to respond to, wouldn't that make this a three-story house then? I mean, it'd be 3 stories above grade, all the way around? Either, you can respond. I mean, I think that's a yes, if you do that, right?
Well, I was going to build a ranch there.
Okay, well, then it would be 2-story, yeah, it would be 2
Right.
stories above grade, okay.
As long as he meets the height requirement.
Some of the examples were 2-story houses.
Right. And I probably will build the ranch plan.
Okay.
That's what more people would like nowadays. So,
So that would make it approximately the same elevation as the house next to it, a little bit higher, right?
right.
And, okay,
Okay?
yes, thank you.
Mr.
Go
Chairman.
right ahead, Mr. Cook.
Todd, I want to thank you for doing the research with Lake County. I know that isn't always easy. And on your site plan, I think it's important that you have that 792 elevation for your driveway apron. That eastbound traffic on Hoos, I think it's important that you make sure that you hit the site plan right, because that apron can't be pitching up when people are trying to exit out of that driveway. It'll be a problem.
Right, I'm gonna
Okay.
build that whole.
You're gonna bring fill in.
Right.
I'd say just be real cognizant of these grades here. And another thing, can you save any of the full-size trees on the property? I know the ones in the middle are gonna have to go, but those ones on the back are real nice.
Yes, the ones on the back I was planning to
Okay.
save.
Because a lot of times people come in, they clear it,
Right.
but those are some nice trees there.
Yeah, the back ones, we're,
Yeah. The one by the fire pit there, it's gonna have to go. I know that, but if you can save as much as possible.
okay.
That's all I got.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Sidoti?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Mitchell,
Yes,
in accordance with Section 15521 of the Administrative Code, does the Director of Economic Development review all minor subdivisions? And if he determines that there are issues and concerns with the subdivision, he refers it to the commission for action?
yes.
So just for the record, if the commission approves this minor subdivision, the creation of 2 parcels, A and B, then we are in effect creating a non-conforming use for these parcels. Is that correct?
A non-conforming lot.
Lot-
The
for
lot,
lot,
the
yes.
use could be it could be conforming
But the lots become non-conforming.
based on area.
And you said that there are some non-conforming lots in the area.
Yes.
But isn't it true that those are older lots and the majority of the lots in that area conform to the current code?
A lot of them do. We actually did some historical look at this, and at one time, this parcel, I'm just trying to find that information, but at one time, this parcel was combined.
It's right here.
It was actually at one point combined with another parcel on the adjoining road, and then they split it. And I'm not sure, again, why it went through that process. So it's gone through a couple of different renditions. We did have it at one point.
Yeah.
And it was handed out in one of the earlier packets. I don't have it with me at the moment, but we're going to see if we can pull it up by older aerial. That's the, yeah, so that one shows,
Technology.
Anybody here from IT?
Yeah.
it's there.
That's all right, Mr. Chairman.
We can, if we shrink it down, there we go. So the red lines indicate actually the prior parcel delineations. And do you recall when that was then combined?
It was combined sometime in the 1980s.
So it's been a while.
It's been a while.
But as you can see there, and again, I don't understand why it changed again. It's a better frontage for sure for the lot. And it was combined, but at one point it was split into two parcels.
It's the same area, so they would still be in today's code, both well, they may not be both non-conforming, but they were,
I think one of them was, yeah.
one of them was, one of them wasn't, right?
Go ahead, Mr. Sidoti.
Mr. Victor, in order for the house that you're proposing to build, for that to remain in conformance with the current code, you're talking about a 40-foot wide structure by 68 feet deep?
Yes,
That's what you're proposing?
right.
And the city engineer wanted to know what steps you will take to protect this proposed house should that stream begin to flood that's adjacent to the property.
I was going to raise the grade up on that side. I was going to raise the grade up on that side probably about 3 feet, and then build a poured wall. I was going to do poured wall basement at 12 inches wide.
No more questions, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
thank you. Anyone else? Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. Ryan, would you want to keep that 792 as a condition?
No, I mean, it's on his site plan, so I just wanted to,
We want to be sure that 792 stays.
Right, I will. I'll make sure.
About updating the one condition with regard to the basement, and then maybe adding a condition regarding the trees back.
We can certainly do that, if it's the pleasure of the commission. We'll keep the trees on the rear of the property, right,
Right,
which you've agreed to,
right.
and the other one was?
2 stories above grade.
Two-story. You're going to build a ranch house.
Right, yes.
Are we conditioning it has to be a two-story house? Are we conditioning?
Can't be more than 2-story house.
A ranch with a basement.
A ranch with a basement. Well, I don't care what he puts, or a 2-story house without a basement, you know what I'm saying? No more than 2, because it would be otherwise it'd be 3 stories, and I think that's next to the house, that's not doing people next door any good.
So you're saying that he could build a basement or some partial space
I don't
down
care,
there?
I don't care what the spaces are called, they're just 2 occupiable spaces above grade.
Ms. Mitchell, does condition number 4 conflict with what we're talking about now?
That would be a modification to number 4 so that it would have to read, the house built would have to be a 2-story house above or at grade. Well, he's calling.
Okay?
Yeah.
Just when you're ready.
Nope.
We have a second.
Need a motion and a
We need a
second.
motion.
Anybody?
Motion to approve with
7.
6 conditions
And 4 modified.
and 4 modified.
I'll second.
Mr. Varga,
No.
Mr. Cicero,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
No.
Mr. Tiedemann,
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Under new business, architectural review, reimaging of a restaurant at 7850 Manor Avenue. Would you re-identify yourself for the clerk, please?
Scott Fox with Washington Prime Group.
Randy Parsons with MPG Architects.
Give us a little overview of what you want to do.
We're creating a new restaurant called the Brew Kettle. It's a small chain of restaurants. We're introducing it into the corner of the mall where there was originally going to be a restaurant. It's just, this is a new restaurant that we're introducing into the corner.
Kathy, anything from the administration?
They were very specific with the materials, and we've noted those in the conditions. And the landscape plan that was provided was actually an existing landscape plan. We would need that upgraded.
Okay, and you're going to irrigate it. There'll be irrigation for the landscaping,
Yes,
and you'll turn it on.
maybe.
A lot of people don't turn it on. That's been a problem. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Mr. Sidoti?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On this rendering here, the material above the 3 garage doors, do you have a sample of that material?
There's the metal. And the color of that would be musket gray, which is, this is musket gray right here.
So it comes in that color?
Yes.
There's no painting required?
No, it comes pre-finished.
Is there any reason you didn't consider extending this brick veneer south to the edge of round 1 to give it a more fuller look?
Well, it's the same thing on the other side. We tried to let the new material be framed by the existing building instead of just applying the material. We tried to look at it from a 3-dimensional aspect and let the existing building frame the new materials.
Mr. Sidoti, you might want to look at that particular one as the previous report, and it was slightly modified in the newer drawings. So what you're seeing on the round 1 example is a little different.
You can look at the screen up there. He's got the new rendering up.
And that lap siding is what you're putting down on the sidewalk area in front of the...
No, there's no lap siding anywhere. It's all
It's
metal
stone.
panel, yeah. And It's all anodized metal panel.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else?
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
With the new areas exterior to the building, the exterior patio and then the enclosed patio, both of those are extending out where there is currently a landscape cut out in the sidewalk. What happens to the landscaping, or where does the landscaping go? You know, we were asking for foundation, yeah, you can see it there on both sides. Now, those would be in conflict with the location of the extension.
You're correct. So
Thank you.
we've worked with Washington Prime on that, and on either side of the main entry where there's a little indent, we're going to introduce beds there. And then also, our intent is to provide a couple raised planters, like pots, if you will, large-scale pots out in front of the facility.
So what goes in the pots in the winter?
Nothing.
That's part of the problem, I think.
No, I mean, we would provide some mix of materials, so you may have small arborvitae or boxwoods in those pots to go along with some flowers.
Does that meet the spirit of the landscape ordinance?
Well, we're going to have to look at the updated landscape plan, I mean, to really give a fair answer to that. I think as long as the applicant, you know, adheres to the foundation plantings we talked about along the walls, gives us a detailed plant material list, then we can.
Which you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll receive that.
Yeah, my reaction is that we can see the area that, in the back, you can see it on the screen, where there's both foundation plantings and some islands that still allow for passage. I don't know if they're going to put trees in there or if it's just all going to be low landscaping, but I guess we're not going to see it now, but we would want to still see something substantial enough so it just doesn't look like something that, an afterthought, you know.
No, we understand that, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cook?
The outside patio facing north, I'd like to see some sort of, like a hip wall with some vegetation on top of that. Not a complete cover from the existing Macy's parking lot, but while you're sitting there, you know, a little bit of coverage there, like, I don't know, like a short hip wall with vegetation in it. Or
And the fence above it.
Yeah, so, I mean, not a complete screen,
Yeah,
but something to give you some coverage there while you're eating.
Yeah,
Now,
I-
the sun will be behind you. 'cause it-
Yeah, I can understand the desire to have that. I can tell you from experience and doing other restaurants, when you provide that type of stuff, whether it's kids or adults who are irresponsible, you end up with cigarette butts or trash or whatever inside those beds, and it becomes a maintenance thing for the staff. Or if there's flowers in there, people are picking the flowers. So that's the reason we didn't provide a wall there with vegetation. I know there's a need for bollards to protect those patrons, which will introduce the bollards into that screening, but, you know, that's why we didn't provide the vegetation there, Brian.
And one other thing is that when this corner was supposed to be a Primanti Brothers, there was some sanitary work done there. It's incomplete. So I think,
So part of this deal is we're going to be installing the grease interceptor for the tenant before they come in and do the
okay,
work.
because
So-
it got capped off in a few
Correct.
places. Okay.
Yep,
all right.
we're aware of that.
So make sure you submit plans to Lake County Utilities for it.
We're working on them right now.
All right, thanks.
So let me ask a question of the city. For the outdoor patio and with the light gauge fencing that's around it, yes, we would be looking for bollards to protect them specifically because they're 5 feet from the driving lane. What about the metal building? The other enclosed patio? We're within 5 feet of this driveway. Do we need to concern ourselves with a bollard condition there? I mean, it's really just, I don't know.
You know,
I guess they hit it, right?
well, I thought about that, but it's also, it's almost more like it's just a large window, and I was in debate about that.
I was just thinking about the piers, not so much.
That's where they're gonna put the landscaping anyway, right?
Yeah, they're gonna, well, there's no room. There's no room to put landscaping
Well,
on.
they said they'd take care of it.
That's just, that there's not enough room. Well, I know, it was just a thought. I'm not saying we have to do it. I'm not dictating to do it, but I was just
What are you
for sake of
what are you
discussion.
suggesting?
I was suggesting that we could provide some steel reinforcing within the wall in the lower portion and on either side of those overhead doors
Yeah.
as well, so that we don't have bollards sticking out in front of the building.
Yeah, I'm not trying to force that.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just
I
saying
understand.
It's almost the same condition, and the metal construction is relatively light gauge. If it was just reinforced to protect the occupants in case somebody hopped the curb and hit the corner, and we wouldn't want to see that. All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sidoti?
The handicap spaces that are being created right now, you have the area cordoned off. Are those for your facility to meet your requirement to provide handicap parking? In front of round one, in front of your.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anything else from the city?
Maybe we could add a condition about the reinforcements on that patio wall facing.
And when you put the bollards in, we don't want to look like we're tying off freighters,
You understand that?
okay? So they need to be some sort of decorative bollards,
Okay.
as opposed to the traditional,
You don't want a big yellow bollard, concrete bollard out there?
no,
Okay,
Non-freighter type.
non-freighter.
we understand.
Unloading dock.
Anything else, commissioners? Entertain a motion.
Where are we at here? How many? Added.
Want to add
I'll make the motion with 4 conditions, adding the reinforced steel.
Okay,
Second.
just when you're ready.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6, miscellaneous review of an outdoor display and the staging of merchandise at 9615 Diamond Center.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Nance with R.H. Smith. I have with me the Home Depot store manager, Rich Rodriguez, and the assistant manager, Dave Furlich.
It's reversed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He's the store manager, I'm the assistant.
Okay.
You gave him a promotion.
Yeah. You better switch around.
And he'll take it.
So we're here today, we're requesting 4 areas on the site for outside display, staging of merchandise, and sales of outside areas. We reviewed the staff recommendation and report. We actually concur with 2 of the items. Those items were the 2 locations nearest the garden center, to the north side of the garden center for hardscape storage, and the area along the west of the garden center for decorative plant displays. I think we can live with staff's recommendation for those 2 areas. The other 2 areas, I'd like store managers to explain a little bit about, why they feel this is important, a little bit about that operation, and maybe some thought on that.
I mean, bottom line, the area to the south that's been identified is where we were staging our tool rental equipment. And immediately in front of the building, that area is a concrete pad that we maintain to be able to hold small trailers. It's secured, and it's an area that is observable by our security cameras. So we feel very good about having that high-price product available, and that we can keep an eye on it and make sure that and everything that is returned and held correctly. There are 8 spots, kind of to the west, southwest a little bit there, that we utilize for larger trailers that are the trailers themselves available for rental, and then some of the trailers would house small backhoe, some other larger equipment. Again, it's an area that's observable by our security cameras. We have to have the opportunity to display these things so that our customers understand that they're available for rental. The other part of that too is without
having the opportunity to rent some of those trailers in particular, as we go into the spring season, we sell a lot of bulk merchandise, and we wouldn't be able to transact those sales if we wouldn't provide a method for our customers to be able to take that product home. The other thing too, having it in the front of the building allows the customers to kind of review and then have conversations with our tool rental staff to be able to understand how to use, what are all the opportunities, the benefits of the equipment in particular. So that area is kind of key to the business operating the way it's intended to.
The only thing I would have to add is, to what Rich said, is we're just trying to take care of our customers. They're the same customers you guys have. It's just people in the community. They've been coming there for, it's like 20 years now, the store's been open. I think we've been a good neighbor. We've worked within the community, done a lot of things for veterans and different other organizations. And we're just asking that we can keep, like that picture there, just keep that stuff in the parking lot so that we can have it available for our customers. Thank you.
Any comments from the administration?
We took a look at the history of of this particular site. Actually found this has been before you, before the Planning Commission.
Many times.
Many times. And I know that the north side was granted that approval of the outdoor storage actually year-round of garden equipment, garden materials, I should clarify. It was at one point approved for just a certain time of year, and then they came back, and it was updated to allow it. And again, that's just limited to bagged landscape materials, decorative rocks, and topsoil and plant goods exclusive of equipment. The outside tool rental, you have a longer history with that than I do. I mean, it's a tough call. I mean, normally we don't allow things in the parking lot. The front portion of the building, it is, outside of walkways. But I guess the concern is that it is now kind of encroaching into the parking lot. Does that parking area expand, in terms of its usage of that storage over time or not?
Okay, thanks. Commissioners, any comments, questions for the applicant or the administration?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Perkovic.
I have a couple questions for the applicant. The north and west face at the garden area, I mean, I really don't have a problem with that. We know that the north end is already granted. Now, the west section, the bulk of that is undercover, is it not?
That's correct.
Yeah, so I mean, that has, in the past, that has held planting materials, but it's somewhat hidden just for that fact, roof-wise.
We're not debating that part.
Okay, so that's what you're looking at, is that undercover area that's somewhat hidden.
Right.
And then, now onto the tool area, that front section that's right on the west face also, that has always been there. What you're asking for that's somewhat new is the parking lot spaces.
Both.
Okay, because from just shopping there for years, that the one along the building has been there, but it's almost hidden because of the large canopy you've got there at the tool rental entrance. So that one is a little bit lesser of the evil than encroaching out in the parking lot. I guess there is two big trees there, but if anything, I would suggest that if we do explore that further, maybe that has to become a dedicated area that is screened a little bit more fully with vegetation. Just a thought.
Okay. Any thoughts on that?
If that was the way the commission wanted to go, we would definitely be willing to do that.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Varga.
When the facility first opened up, where did you keep this rental equipment?
I was here in the Menor store for 5 years ago, so I wasn't there at the very beginning. I'm not sure where the tool rental equipment was. I would just have to assume it was in the same place that it is now.
I have a feeling that it wasn't at the beginning, only because it wouldn't have been approved. Okay, let me ask you this. Where would your B location be for that storage?
For those big pieces of equipment,
Yeah.
we'd probably have to eliminate them.
Just not run them?
We wouldn't, it would put us out of that business because.
You couldn't put them behind the store and
Well-
just bring them out after people rented them?
We could, but then you run the risk of there being thievery, there's, people going through there. Everything is locked up as far as the pieces are chained down, but we have no way to police that all the time because there's not people in the back of the building all the time like there are out in the front.
Yeah, my reaction to this is the camel's nose. Because if we approve this, especially with the stuff out in the parking lot, that within 2 weeks, every other big box store is going to make the same request to put stuff out in the parking lot. And we will have set a precedent here to do it that way. Whereas the regs say, no, you're not allowed to do any of this, right? So my biggest concern is that, Sam's Club is right next door. You know what's happening to the south of you. We've got Myers coming in, we have Lowe's. The city has a policy that says they don't want that. My personal feeling is we shouldn't approve this because unless the city tells us to change the policy, because it's going to end up applying to everybody. All the big boxes. I know you're just asking for yourself and then you have your justification and you understand it, but as a planning commissioner, I see this as if we change this here, we're going to have to accept this at every other big box store that sells, rents, delivers large quantities of stuff. We already have, Lowe's already has their pile next to their store, and they don't have the approval to do it. I'm not going after them right now. It's not the point, but I'm just saying. And then, Drug Mart wants to put stuff in front of their store, right? And then, how do we stop anyone from doing this kind of stuff, putting stuff in the parking lot? That's not a desired outcome. I know you may not like that, but that's the policy that we have now. And I just have a problem with changing that policy unless unless council or someone tells us that they want the policy changed. Because it's going to, I just can't see approving this and then thinking that we're not going to see this again every place in town. So anyhow, that's my point of view.
Could you do anything with the building material around that? Could you build a wall that closes off this section
In the parking lot itself?
in the parking lot itself?
Three sides of it. I think you're
Yeah,
saying to
three sides.
have a three-sided enclosure around that area, like a
Block wall?
4 or 5 foot block wall or something?
As long
Match the
as long
building.
as it would cover up the height of the rental equipment.
Possible.
Yes, that is something that can be definitely explored on our end.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
around the building, I really don't have a problem with what you're asking, but again, it's these 8 spots out in the parking lot, and I have 2 little kids, and they're gonna make a beeline for that. So if you could somehow come up with something that keeps kids away, from trying to climb on and getting to it. I understand it's under surveillance, I get that, but I know how my kids are too.
Let me just, go ahead.
Along that same point, it feels so temporary. You're asking for something that's permanent, and it just feels temporary what you're doing. So even walls, I guess I'd have to see what you came up with, because that could still feel temporary. I'm okay against the building. When I look at the pictures Larry had, against the building right now, you have some larger trailers and that. Maybe there's even a way to reconfigure what you put out there to get your larger equipment there as well as your smaller equipment, so you don't encroach onto the parking lot. But if you do, I think it has to be something that looks like it was meant to be there.
So I'm picturing something that would look similar to the walls like Lowe's has on the outside of their garden center. They have those, I think they're probably 8 foot tall. They weren't there when that store opened because I know I opened that store years ago. I happened to be there at that time. So those have been added since then. So that's what I would picture, a three-sided wall, like Jeff said, with that block probably 8 foot tall, if, or whatever would be what you guys would want. That's, if you tell us what the specifications are, and I'm sure we can go to that.
Are we talking about right against the building? Or are we also,
I would be talking about right against the building.
so basically extending out from the wall of the building so that it almost would become an attachment and then extend over so that it screens it from,
Exactly.
Oh, along that curb that's
Yep.
right there where you're
Yep.
pointing now? That's where you're looking at.
Let me just ask a question. I don't, opposite your, where you drop your bag goods along the north side, there's a whole series of parking spaces there.
That's correct.
That I would suggest nobody ever uses.
No,
Could you
they really
could
don't.
you move the rental equipment to that location? I know it's not next to where your people are, but those, you could wall that off and it would be within the setback of the building. And you could do anything, you could make it as big as the building as far as I'm concerned, but that certainly would be, I mean, rather than put spaces out in front of the building, those spaces I wouldn't have a problem with.
Okay, and that, see, we didn't know that that was an option.
Well, I'm throwing it
You're
out.
just
I'm
throwing it
not
out.
making the
Sure.
decision, but I'm just asking. If you could make those spaces down at that end, the equipment storage area, it would be akin to where we already allow you to store, the big bags of fertilizer and stuff. And that could be a permanent walled in, and it would be there, and it would be back within the face of the,
So
behind the
I'm
face of the
envisioning
building.
a wall that would go that whole length of that curb along Sam's Club then.
Yeah, as big as you
And
want to
what-
make it, but you could make it the full size of the end of the building there. And you
Okay.
could put gates on it, you could lock stuff up. I mean, we're already letting you store stuff there,
Okay.
right? I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'm just looking for,
It's the
where's the
out in
wiggle
the
room here?
parking lot,
It's
yeah.
not
Not in the park.
It's not in front of the building.
We're willing to
Because we
work
could
that
manage
way.
this same scenario with other people who might come to us and find other acceptable solutions like that with, I'm thinking down the road. It's behind the face of the building that you store this in an enclosure.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sidoti.
I want to piggyback on Mr. Vargas' earlier comments. Ms. Mitchell, you yourself said we're seeing this more and more, okay? And it seems like, we're opening the door a little bit each time this issue comes before us. And, maybe it is time, Mr. Vargas, to revisit this and decide what do we want to do with these retail establishments and the issues of storage outside. I remember sitting here judging 2 or 3 retail establishments much smaller than this, wants to put some propane tanks or, an ice machine outside, and we beat them senseless and say, no, you can't do it. And they leave mad, but we said, look, you can't do it, our regs don't allow that. It seems like there's a little inconsistency here. And then the other problem I start seeing, one of the big boxes on Menor Avenue, and I saw it with your facility. I drove behind the building, there's all kinds of storage back there. Busted pallets, some machinery, lumber, mulch. And the lane I was driving in, I couldn't tell if it was 15 feet, which is required for an emergency vehicle to go through there. So, this is I'm feeling this is starting to get out of hand. And I just want to say I agree with Mr. Varga. This may need a stronger look if we're gonna start allowing this to happen and coming up with, instead of coming up with suggestions, well, if you want to do this, why don't you do this, put a gate or do that. This equipment you wanted to store in the southern end in the parking lot. You said you had security cameras, but at night, is this all chained down?
Yes, it is.
There's no way you're gonna watch it.
Right, well, the cameras run, obviously, 24 hours a day, and we do have overnight freight people that are at the store also.
This summer coming, Are you intending to come to the city to allow you to display all those plants
Yeah, we do
west of the
that.
garden center in the parking lot?
Yeah, that's 2 different weeks during the year. It's usually Mother's Day weekend and Memorial Weekend. Those are the 2. We've done that for many years.
Right, and I've
Yeah.
been there. Wow.
So that's worked out great.
So whose decision would it be to go with the wall, the length of the building? Is that your decision, or is corporate's decision?
That's corporate's decision. We would have to, I'm sure we'd have to get, Jeff might know more about that then.
Yeah, well, I think that typically the way it works is that we provide them with an option. Say, for example, the planning board would recommend an approval, however, you would need to provide 3 sides of screen with a wall. The wall would have to be 6 feet high, so you couldn't see the merchandise behind the wall, something to those effects, and then corporate would decide if they wanted to invest the money.
So we could do that, you could do that. Okay.
Yeah, and I would just say, think out of the box, make it 8 foot high, and then you can store some of your other stuff in there too at times. I'm trying to think about what you needed to make it work for you, but also, and the one thing that, as was mentioned, you need to maintain that fire lane. So, you build this thing and you put some stuff in there, and then you'll have a bunch of stuff piled up. You need at least, I think it's 15 foot that the fire lane has to be. So you have to have that, and I don't know how we act on this, but we
Well,
can.
we can table it and then ask
you
them to
can
come
come
back
back
with
and
a
tell us what you wanna
recommendation,
do.
right?
On that, okay. Because that would actually work, putting that equipment on that end, because putting it on the back of the building does shrink that fire lane
Yeah,
down,
no,
like
no,
you
we-
said.
Right, we don't want it in
So,
the back
right,
of the building,
we
yeah.
don't either.
Right.
because Safety is first and foremost, so to me, that's a great option.
So you have 2 options before you, creating the wall in the front along Diamond Center, the enclosure, or putting it back on the northern end, the wall, the gate.
Over by Sam's Club. Okay.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to table with the proviso that you go ask corporate about coming up with a solution.
Motion to table.
I'll second.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovich.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Architectural review reimaging of a commercial building at 7980 Plaza Boulevard. Is that applicant here? If you'd identify yourself for the clerk, please.
My name is Dane Ridenauer. I represent At Home, a home decor retailer. Other information do I need to give?
I think that's got it.
Okay.
And I'm Jeff Hartman. I'm the property manager for DFG Mentor Erie Commons LLC, owner of the property.
Okay. Right ahead. What do we want to do there?
Well, what At Home is doing is they are consolidating several lease spaces into a larger space. For those of you who don't know, At Home is a home decor retailer. Their tagline is the Home Decor Superstore. Their development mode is basically a warehouse showroom type look, very similar to a Lowe's or a Best Buy or something like that, where it's exposed structure inside, polished concrete floors, and then with the display of merchandise. In terms of their product, think home goods or there's some like Pier 1 influence and so forth like that in it. They do a lot of seasonal stuff like Christmas trees, Halloween decorations, things like that. They have artwork. They carry a little bit of furniture, but it's not their main sales. It's patio furniture or bar stools or bunch tables or things like that. Lamps, lampshades, so forth like that. The intent is to come in and do a look that's fairly prototypical. By way of information, At Home went through a rebranding about 4 years ago. And as it went from being a regional retailer to being a national retailer. With that, they changed the name from Garden Ridge to At Home and came up with a distinctive entry, which is displayed in the colored elevations that they are rolling out nationwide with their stores. In this particular location, there's a recessed entry to the Burlington that's there. We would go ahead and fill that in, include that in the retail space, eliminate the demising walls between the smaller retailers to the, what was that, south?
To the south.
Yeah, to the south, to create one large space. As far as the staff report goes, just like to very quickly kind of run through the proposed conditions, if that would be acceptable.
Sure.
Item 1, comments should be addressed in writing, which we can do that. Item 2, no outdoor storage or display. At Home does not do any outdoor storage or display.
Good, good.
The cement masonry units shall be replaced with a brick similar in size to the existing brick of the building. What we propose to do on that is use a split-face CMU. On the left side of the building, we'd be infilling the existing storefront glazing. On the right side, we'd be creating a new wall to fill in that current void space. We wanted to establish a rhythm across there, and wanted also to use some varying textures to just kind of emphasize that rhythm. We'd like to use the split-face CMU, but we're willing to go with the brick if that be the commission's decision.
You want to see the brick?
Approved building materials, I think it's pretty straightforward. Item 5, pursuant to the signs, we acknowledge that the icon light fixtures would be considered part of the signage package. As far as item 6 goes, the landscape plan, At Home does not control the parking lot, the site. All we have is basically a curbs in deal. So I'll let Jeff address that.
Currently, there is really very little landscaping there. We are more than willing to invest some money to upgrade it, but as you can see, there are hardly any islands in the parking lot. We do have islands separating the parking from the main drive lane and the storefronts, and I think we do a pretty reasonable job of keeping vegetation in there. It's somewhat difficult in that it gets salted all winter long, but we have no issue with investing some money in landscaping.
Because you would agree that this is pretty old shopping area.
Yes.
So rules change over the course of time.
Correct.
You know, we continually try to upgrade what we're doing. So that's the reason for the comment, I think.
Okay.
And then item 7, the photometric plan.
I just got one today, by the way.
We can certainly provide that. Although we'll have to work with them because right now we don't have the information on what those fixtures are and so forth. The new fixtures, the intent would be on the back and side to replace the existing wall pack fixtures with new LED fixtures. And we can certainly provide the photometrics for that.
Good. Okay. Commissioners, questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sidoti.
Larry, can you go back to that picture you showed when they were talking about the landscape and shows the parking area? Does your project also include repairing and fixing this parking lot?
Yes. In the past, I was able to put something down that, see, that
Oh, yeah, we can.
Got a baseball?
I'm sorry, I can just explain it. Last year, we spent $100,000 on asphalt work. Most of it was done in front of Giant Eagle. And I have the same budget for this year, and the plan would be to do the area that's in front of the proposed At Home.
So it's part of your plan?
It is part of the plan, and all I have is kind of a rough drawing of what we did last year and extending it this year. So it's probably not necessary to
Right, okay.
rewire everything.
Larry, has the applicant submitted building materials?
Just what the building elevations indicate. We just got it switched over.
All right, so excuse the crude drawing, but the hashed area in red is the asphalt that was replaced last year.
Okay.
At home would take up spaces I, J, K, and L, and the plan would be to extend the asphalt from what we did in 2018 heading south.
Mr. Chairman, this is just my opinion. I'd be interested to see what the other members think. But I'd like to see a color rendering of the project, you know, with the materials and the colors you're using, encompassing the south end and the north end, the Giant Eagles and Spectrum on that side, how it's all going to coordinate, how it's going to blend together, how it's going to look. Right now, I'm not sure what, you know.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I was looking on Google of what your stores look like, and a couple of them look different colors, so I'm just curious which version will be put.
Don't forget,
let's
you have
slide
different
that over a
colors
little
on
bit so we
both
have
sides
some.
of you now.
One of the things that I would like to add is Giant Eagle will definitely have a facade change in the not-too-distant future. So I don't think we should spend too much time looking at Giant Eagle and trying to match that facade. I think it would be better off if we were to look at Joanne.
Okay, go that way, right.
So,
I think,
I want to pay
but
you
Mr.
I want to pay you one compliment. You got rid of the shoes and clothing bin drops in the parking lot. I appreciate that.
Those were not supposed to have been there. Those companies have a habit of just
They're just
dropping
dropping
them, and they tend to disappear somehow.
Take a torch to them? No, I'm kidding.
I make a phone call and they go away. And there was one that was in Great Lakes Plaza not that long ago.
Right.
It is gone.
Okay, good.
I just want to emphasize what Mr. Sidoti said. I am curious as to the coloring, because, like I said, there's different versions you've done, or the franchise has done.
I'm not totally sure of what you're looking at. What we're proposing is the
The blue, or, there's a blue finish and there's more of a beige gray finish.
I think that may be the effect of the sun. The colors, the at-home dark gray and the at-home Jennison light gray have been the standard colors for the last 5 years. And we propose that to use on this building as well. That's what the CEO likes, and that's what gets approved.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed to what, I'd like to see it.
Understood.
And along those same lines, this town is very sensitive about liking to see brick. So in terms of block, you know, a utility brick or, you know, a modular brick or something, you know, any kind of brick you want, but they'd rather see brick than to see block, especially split-face block, which it doesn't make people happy around here to see split-face block. So, and then the question is the color of the brick, you know, in this environment, do you match some of the other color, or is that dictated by corporate as to what that color would be? I think we need to see a future presentation.
Yeah, it's up there now.
Oh, I think we need to see a future presentation of the architectural imagery. I don't think anyone questions the project.
Yeah. The coloration that you see there is typical. The varying lighting conditions have had some impact on the way those colors actually represent. But that is the light gray and dark gray, which is the standard palette for the at-home.
Yeah, the entrance area is fine. I mean, I think that's understandable. When I
should.
see how it plays out on the wings of the building, which is actually more 60, 80% of the elevation, I'd like to see how those materials and the color plays out with that.
Yep.
And then there's the reality that there's a brick, there's a building next to you over here, there's a building next to you over here. I don't know if those are the same color brick. I'd kind of like to see how this plays out, so it just doesn't look like this is a different colored tooth in a mouth of different, just how it looks, so we can get a feel for it. I mean, the reality is to the south, there's some awnings and there's some roofs that are like a burgundy color. And then everything to the north is a forest green color, and I just kind of want to feel how this fits into that kind of environment. I realize the green and the can go away, or it could be changed, but we just need to see the colors for an architectural approval.
And there's one other comment that I would like to make about the existing architecture. The entrance to what is currently Burlington, and one of the reasons this was, we're before you now, is Burlington wants a store less than half the size of what they currently have. They are going to be moving to the former H.H. Gregg in the shopping center next door. So what you have there there are actually ceiling tiles, interior ceiling tiles on the underside of that canopy.
Yeah.
That is a remnant of when this was a mall and that was an interior section. It is a hideous architectural element currently. And At Home is going to make that go away.
Right. No, I don't, I'm speaking for myself. I have no problems with the nature or the character of the project, other than we need to see the materials and the colors displayed so we understand the environment that it's in and how it looks.
Barry, do you happen to have the samples that we? May I have the envelope, please?
If you want to get those out of the way or turn them upside down so they have a white surface.
There's actually, the typical exterior scheme is the light gray on the upper portion, dark gray on the lower portion with, it's Sherwin-Williams Greek Villa is the precise color, but it's basically just slightly off-white that acts as a pinstripe separating the two materials. And then this would be the ephes that's used for the main entry feature, and then the roof samples for the standing seam roof on the entry feature.
So what color would have been the masonry that we were just talking about, the masonry on the wings? Which of these colors would be were you painting the split face, one of these colors?
Yeah, typically, yes, we do, in order to maintain the consistency of
Okay,
colors.
no, I understand. That's what I was just...
It's tough to get block to be that color.
Oh, I know.
And to have
Or anything.
the darkness of
So even if you used brick, I'm just kind of talking through the process, the idea, the request that everyone likes to see brick, you would paint the brick to fit your
Yes.
motif?
Yes.
Okay.
Plus, considering the fact that we are dealing with an aged building here, we found that painting is necessary to preserve the waterproof integrity of the brick. Otherwise, it tends to deteriorate.
So what's the pleasure of the commission?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Sidoti?
I would say that I think we all like the project. That plaza surely needs some upgrade, some reimaging. We have these materials here, it's like a puzzle. Now you got to put all this together. I think we would like to see, a rendering showing the project and how it incorporates with the buildings, Spectrum and Joann Fabrics, to the south. I accept your view on Giant Eagles. I think that is going to change. I mean, Giant Eagles is going to be moving anyhow. But I think we need to see this all put together so we can, like Mr. Cicero said, see how it all gels. And if there's anything we see we can pick out, we can discuss. So based on that, for the members' consideration, I'm going to put a motion on the table that this be tabled pending a further presentation addressing these requirements.
Well, before we vote on that, let me just ask the question. Can we approve the project but withhold the architectural approval? We've done that in the past.
That is essentially the application is for architectural.
Okay, then I'd have to go along with what you're saying.
May I ask a question, please? I don't foresee anything happening with the Giant Eagle facade in the near, but something will happen. How are we going to tie things together when we have this existing facade that will not be there sometime in the foreseeable future?
I don't think we're concerned with tying into it.
Okay.
I just think to say, yes, that's an attractive project, and we understand the context that it's made in, then we can see what it's gonna look like, right? I understand you probably don't wanna make any permanent adjustments based on Giant Eagle, but we would just kind of see how this works and the color scheme and how it works, just how it fits in its environment, so
Right,
that we
that's what
can
we're
say,
looking
yes, this is good, And don't think I don't want to give the impression we're being tough on you. If you were here for Hobby Lobby, we danced them around quite a bit and got what we wanted, and I think they were happy too at the end. So we want everyone to be happy with the product.
Just a question I have regarding timing and things like that. Is this something where we could be put on the next agenda? And then, I mean, it may take us as much as a week to
That's fine.
get the new rendering
Yes.
done. Okay.
Very good.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Yes,
Mr. Varga.
This is the table, correct?
Yes.
Table.
Yes.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Swett.
See you in 2 weeks. Final site plan and architecture review of a commercial building, Enterprise Rent-A-Car at 8585 Menor Avenue. Ready?
My name's Tony Cerny, Architectural Design Studio, architect for the project. I have with me John Sicola from Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Going over the staff report, a couple of things that are on here. I just wanted to clarify a little bit on. There was a comment on here about the sprinkler plan. We have submitted the sprinkler plan, so an irrigation plan is in place relative to the landscaping. We've also submitted the light fixture cut sheets, so that's also been provided to the city at this time. Essentially getting down to the proposed conditions, there's 5 currently on there. First one relative to meeting the engineer's requirements. We're working on the stormwater design currently. We'll go ahead and make sure that we conform to all the engineer's requirements. Been a tough site to work with. Storm sewers in the area are not very deep. And our site happens to slope away from the road, so kind of a struggle to try to get that stormwater to work, but we're working through it. Number 3, we've already taken care of. We've submitted that plan. Number 4, I'm sure Enterprise will take care of providing a bond for the landscaping. So the 2 that I have some concerns or some issues I'd like to talk about. Number 2 was talking about the window on the building, window patterns on the building. That elevation that shows up on there, that shows the side view. It doesn't really show the street view. See if I got one here. This one shows the street view. We're not opposed, shouldn't say I'm strongly opposed to revising it. We did send in a revised elevation to the city as well to look at. My preference would be to stay with the aluminum storefront. The primary reason we would like to stay with the storefront is just a little bit heavier duty product. and with the amount of traffic that we get through there, I just think in the long term, we're just better off with that particular product. I will say that in our design, we do have a window pattern on there that is a kind of a punch window pattern, which is pretty consistent with what the older buildings were. If you go down that street in that area, the residential type structures, few one-story, some two-story, they're all really similar with a punch window opening. The primary difference I think that we would see is those particular windows were double hung windows, which have been common in the early 1900s when those were built. So we're not really putting a double hung window on there. We do have, and it may not be really apparent in the initial drawing unless you look really hard, we did put, in addition to the storefront, we do have all those windows cased. We're using a brick mold around the windows that kind of reflect that. So it's not like just a straight aluminum storefront that goes right to the siding. We did do a brick mold. Because we are very concerned about trying to get through tonight and move this project along. The elevation above that shows using more traditional clad wood windows like you would find in a residence. So those particular units, when you look at them, the primary difference with the windows above versus the windows below is you have a double hung window in the main portion with a transom above. I widened the casing on those particular windows, and then I added a little bit deeper head across the top. But they're both cased the same. They both trimmed out with a darker color. I can widen the casing on the aluminum storefronts if that is something that kind of helps. What happens when I do make that change, though, when I change the windows, I also want to change the elements at the entrance. So instead of it being a storefront where I'm really looking for that heavy-duty use and durability, I end up going to a clad residential, light commercial type of unit. It gives you kind of a rail and style door look, so we have some fixed panels and we have one panel that operates so that you have a much more traditional residential look, but I just don't think it's quite as durable. Once again, preference would be to stay with the aluminum storefront, but we're certainly, if the commission really has difficulty with the storefront, we could move to this type of a unit like we have shown here. The second issue on here, and the one that is most critical to enterprise, is the photometric. Now, we've submitted 2 photometrics to the city for review. One of the things that you have the site plan you can flip up there? That would probably be really helpful. One of the things that's I think is important to understand, and I think the commission kind of understands it, but where I think we're running a little bit of difficulty with the city code is that center strip area there where the cars are dropped off and where the cars are picked up by the customers. The city is calling that right now, or city administration is treating that as a parking area. And the problem we're having with calling that a parking area is because we're doing pickups and drop-offs there, it's very important that we be able to inspect the vehicles. So when the vehicles come back, we need to inspect them, and when the vehicles are being leased to the customers have the opportunity to go around the cars and verify they're in good shape. So the lighting levels that the city's looking for in a traditional parking lot are extremely low and don't offer us the opportunity to provide the kind of light that's necessary to inspect these vehicles. So what we did is we provided a photometric that illuminates with much more intensity that strip. The city always talks in lux. I keep thinking of foot candles, but we're approaching 30 foot candles on that strip area there in order to be able to inspect the vehicles. And we've done this on multiple enterprises. It's just very important to have adequate light. And then what we've done on the second photometric, when the store is closed, we would dim all those lights. Once all those lights are dim, then the entire parking area falls within the city requirements for the level of illumination. So it's important to us that we be able to illuminate that center strip area to those higher levels at the times that the store's open. Now, currently, the store hours really 7 o'clock in the morning and they close 6 in the evening. So I wouldn't expect the lights to be on much more before 7, like 6:30 probably in the morning, and then probably close, when they close at 6, the lights are probably dimmed by 7 o'clock, which is, our goal is to hopefully the commission will agree that we can, as opposed to what the recommendation is, we can allow these brighter light levels on that center strip area during hours of operation.
I'm gonna interrupt you there for a second.
Okay.
I'm not sure that that's within our purview at the commission level to deviate from those luxes.
I think if you want to deviate, that would be something you'd have to take to the BZA.
Okay.
You're looking for a deviation on the light plan. I mean, we have a plan that's in place, but I don't know that the commission can change that requirement. The other thing too, if you're familiar with 116903, it talks about the general requirements. There are ways that you can make part of the parking lot brighter and less bright. And those are outlined specifically in subsection A5, where they talk about commercial lighting will be designed to provide an average lux levels at ground level in keeping with recommendations of averages published in a list of publications. Industrial and commercial lighting will be designed to achieve no more than a maximum mean average equal to 200% of equal averages or maximums. Average lux levels in excess of 300% of recommended averages or maximum ground level will be in nonconformance. You're familiar with that?
The problem is that we're much higher than that 300%. And so part of the issue I think we're talking about here, though, is you're trying to establish, you're assigning the lighting levels in this particular area as if it's a parking lot. But it's really not a parking lot. It's a different function. It's while there are vehicles there, it's not like a traditional parking lot like you would have in front of a building or something like that. So while there are those rules there, I think we're a little bit different than that, and I think we should be considered treat that area differently because of that.
Mr. Chairman, this is directed to the city. Is there, I think we kind of talked about this a little bit before, but if we classified that as the same as an auto sales area, would that give them the lighting levels they need?
So they reference this
like-
IESNA standards. We have the reference to that, and it does talk about the allowable lux specifically for car dealerships. And when it's not adjacent to the roadway, other rows, which this would qualify as an other row, the maximum illuminance in lux and foot candles is 50 to 100. So
we're less than 50 foot candle. We're running around 30, less than probably on average a little bit less. Yeah.
50 lux.
I mean, in lieu of dumping this down the road to BZA, which, that could be a functional way, if we just classify it relative to our review as a sales, it's a lease, but it's a lease area, which is, we could interpret as being a sales or a transaction area, right? Then they could accept that. Could we accept that? I'm kind of asking, could we accept that as the definition? And then put the timer and the dimmer on this system so it shuts down in off hours as a condition? And just say, okay, it meets it relative to a sales area or a retail area, okay, relative to automobiles. I'm trying to get them out of here today.
Compliance with the sales area.
I mean, we could.
Do you have any comments on it?
The code that was adopted, the outdoor lighting code, we adopted it using the IESNA model ordinance, and they reference these two books that are referenced in our code. For other roads that he's allowed to do, we will allow 50 to 100 lux lighting. As far as putting them on a timer, we've had problems with the previous owner of the property, lighting complaints against him with the surrounding neighborhoods. Granted, those were probably floodlights that we had problems with. We've had other issues when we have lighting put on timers. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Daylight saving times comes. You know, there's all kinds of different variables that we run into. And then staff has to go out there at night to verify, is it a lighting problem? Well, that's one of the reasons there's an issue when it comes to putting things on timers. Power goes out, lights come back on, and all of a sudden they come on at the full power because the system didn't reset right.
But even if we're going to dump or pass this on to the BZA, the concept of dropping those lighting levels when they're not operating would be advantageous to all the neighbors to be able to do that. I mean,
Have you done this in other locations? I mean, can you talk about that, how you've treated it? I mean,
We have. In our most recent projects, we've incorporated this more as an energy savings than neighborhood friendliness kind of deal, and it's worked out really well. We have in all of our facilities, we have what we call a smart building system. It's a building automation type thing, and we control our HVAC and our lights and all of those kind of things just as an effort to reduce our costs from an energy consumption standard. So the issues that you spoke of as far as like the mechanical timers where you have with one pin here and one pin there, that doesn't exist anymore in our atmosphere. We're kind of leaps and bounds ahead of that. We're like NASA, and that's like a third world country kind of thing. So we can kind of get past those issues right away. And it's been very successful. I can speak from an energy saving standpoint. Our new facility, in a different city pretty recently, it's been fantastic, and everybody's on board with it. This one was slightly different. It was motion activated. When somebody would return a car, the lights would come on. But that neighborhood's a different scenario than Mentor. I think is a delicate way to put that.
You're not going to want the residents having lights on and off.
No, these will not be motion activated.
So you're going to shut the lights off when you leave?
Right. We took the human element out of that, right? So we shut the lights off for them when they leave or if they even stay.
I'd also like to point out that for most of the lot, this area that we're talking about, most of the lot is fine, and we're not distributing light out to the borders where we're impacting any of the residential. We are looking at a much improved fixture over what was currently out there, so we really shouldn't be tasked with the sins from the current owner. We're going to take care of all the lighting that is there. We're going to go with a much more neighborhood-friendly lighting to begin with. Where we're having difficulties for the most part is we have commercial properties on each side. We're running with parking that goes almost right up to those lines, and we're not able to get the light level down to 11 lux right at the property line along these commercial lines. Once we turn the lights off in the center to a lower level, then that happens, but during operating hours, these two commercial lots would have lighting levels that are a little bit higher than 11 lux, which is 1 foot candle, which is almost impossible to see with anyways. So, if we can make this work because you treat it as a auto sales area versus, because I don't think treating it as a parking lot is the correct way to treat it.
So when you say auto sales area, you're speaking hypothetically?
Treating it hypothetically, no intention to sell any vehicles
That was made clear
from the
in the
site.
I think retail area was a great use.
Can we do that? Can we change the function in the sense of that strip to a retail area? Not necessarily that they sell cars, but they sell, they lease this service,
Of the right to use
They
it.
sell the-
However you want to stipulate it, just make it very specific so that we can regulate it.
That's what I'm trying to, and trying to get it within the umbrella of what they need and what is acceptable in the code, so that we're not compromising anything, we're just defining it so that it meets everyone's expectations.
So to put it in an easier terminology, I mean, you say the dimmer lights will be on the outer area of
All the outside lots, all the lights on the outside, except for those 6 that go right down the middle where you see the red, the lights on the outside aren't going to be dim. They're just automatically low enough.
They're constant.
Yeah,
They
they meet their criteria. It's just when we raise the level so much in the center, the spillover from the center causes us to go over the 11 lux along the property line.
If it was just a parking lot.
It was just the parking.
So I'm willing to accept this as not just a parking lot, and it's a
We just define it as the retail area.
yeah, the retail area
strip
that
there.
we
That
allow
strip,
for
down
auto
that
sales,
strip.
but we're extending that retail activity to rentals. And the need for that is, it's a functional requirement, that they need to be able to look at the bodywork and such to see the cars, both the customers and you guys look at the cars. I think we can live with that, can't we?
I think that's the definition of the retail area.
Yeah.
There's,
It's in between the two buildings.
All right.
That's acceptable.
Okay.
As long as we say rental and not sale.
No sales.
no sales. We're not saying
sales.
sales.
No sales.
We just want to be sure.
So what I hear you saying is you don't want any sales.
No sales.
I think that's pretty succinct.
As long as that, and we don't want any sales. So is that have we adjusted another proposed condition?
Yes.
And the dimming is going to be part of this. Actually, we're just altering proposal 5, right?
On the lighting, it's 5, yes.
All right, I'm
All
trying to
these
think
things
of how to
stay in
word this
place,
stuff.
and we're just adding the one area will be considered a retail area.
I think we need to.
Okay.
You could indicate that, that.
Well, first of all, it wouldn't be a condition of not using it, because we've just defined it so that it meets the requirement. All we're actually saying is that that central aisle would be dimmed in non-operation terms, right?
Non-operating hours.
Yeah, non-operating hours. That it would be
I
the
think
same.
we make a 6th condition, because if 5 just applies to the parking areas, and we define that center area as the retail area, then you define how the lighting will happen in that retail
okay.
area. Do it as the 6th
Yeah, the
condition.
6th condition would be that the central retail area meet the lighting levels for commercial
retail.
Commercial retail.
And that area would be dimmed in non-operating hours.
Everybody live with that?
Well, the only thing with number 5, I don't know that we want to say shall not exceed the dim layout as indicated on the plans provided. We could just say that the photometric plan shall meet the requirements set forth in Chapter 1169. As indicated on the plans provided, the
Period.
central
Yeah,
retail area shall be dimmed in off-business hours.
okay.
We may want to call that a leasing area.
Leasing
That would
area.
probably be the best.
okay.
Let's call it a
Whatever you
leasing
wanna
area.
call it.
That's Larry's idea, and I agree with it completely, so.
Okay.
So
So that's just an adjustment to 5.
Adjustment to
does
5.
that meet your requirement?
Does.
Okay. Let's get back to the windows.
Yeah, the windows.
Haven't finished the windows yet. Your thoughts on the windows? The administration's thoughts on the windows?
I understand his point with regard to the durability, and there are a mixture of windows. One of the windows that we, I know he gave he provided us some examples. I do like the updated feature of to be in keeping with that, a village core that, we've been trying very hard to kind of be consistent
So
with.
the Brunner Building's across the street. What
That's a
kind of-
nice example, the Brunner Building. You said you were going to pull that up.
Yeah, me.
That,
And you said you don't have a particular druthers one way or another with this.
I'd rather stay with the aluminum storefront for sure.
He prefers the aluminum.
know,
stuff.
But
I'm
if
trying
push
to put
comes to
words in his
shove,
mouth.
then, we'll make the,
You got me home on the lights. I'll get you home on the windows.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so we're looking for the more divided light,
If
more
that's,
residential
if that's your
looking.
preference, I know that was the preference
Well,
over here.
I would support that. As a general, see, I mean, go back to the tire.
Yeah, I'd love to
Go back
see
to
the picture.
Go back to the commercial windows right there. See, there's, right there in that tire store, they're divided lights more. It looks a little, it's not, it's not just a big glass window.
Are there grids in there? Is that what that is?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. And the size of the glass, and we're not saying duplicate that, we're just saying this shows up in other places. If you look across the street,
I can put a grid in the storefront. Is that what
Is
you want to see?
is the grid the thing? Because then we can all be happy.
Well, there were examples provided. We weren't holding to
I'm
to
not
one or
saying,
the
I'm
other.
not saying just do this. I'm just saying we've tried to establish some of these windows so that they don't look so commercial. Go across the street, just zoom around 180 degrees. And then you look at, like, I mean, obviously it's a different look, but can you get closer?
Yeah, it is.
There you go.
You see that arch detail, though,
Yeah,
on the
the
top
arch
there?
on the top, yeah.
I don't think that's.
Those were just,
I will point out, I mean, what
Again,
you're
we're
looking
not-
at there is, you know, that's a late 1800s
Yeah, it's-
Italianate style house, and that's
Yeah.
really not appropriate for the rest of the style that we're looking at.
But we are looking for a somewhat stylized look. Not not necessarily that, but that this village concept wants to see the
Right.
windows in somewhat of a stylized look.
Okay, so when you're looking at these windows here, this little Firestone dealership, I don't think we're a whole lot different than that. You know, I'm not a big fan of throwing the grids inside the glass, because I
I'm
don't
not
think it
either.
really enhances
I'm
them
not
at all.
either.
And there's another building further down the street where they threw a bunch of grids in it, and I don't think it adds to it. But we do add some detail around it, so we're not just talking about a straight aluminum storefront. And if we need to add some casing around that to add a little more dimension to the windows, I'm okay with doing something like that.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking that I understand your concern about the durability of the door system, that maybe the windows are handled with a little more detail on the street and the doors can be handled in a more utilitarian way. Read between the lines, figure out what that means.
Mr. Chairman, just can I add a little bit on that? When I read the statement that the administration was looking to enhance essentially the window, what I read into that was when I looked at the building, it was mostly the trim work to me. Now, I do agree with the coming up with maybe a different, not necessarily grid pattern, but arrangement of the windows or the number of windows. But I think you hit the nail on the head with your alternate submission where you were beefing up the trim work and the head.
Okay.
I had that actually sketched out somewhat to that. I actually, in my version, or my thought was that your top transoms, I had shown grids in it, which was, I think, one of the examples we just saw where that almost looked like a transom with the smaller panes in there, kind of like that. And then the bottom section could be what you had shown. But I think what's important to myself anyway would be that the trim work on the exterior of the window was really what was lacking in the first submission.
Okay, so if we come back, we widen the casing, what I have shown on this picture here, stay with the aluminum storefronts, broken the way I have them broken on the original, and add, turn the top transom into 3 lights, something like that. Is that an agreeable?
I think that's what what would work.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr.
I just have one more thing. I'd like to see like a non-residential type gutter system. Not the K gutter that you'd see like on a house, something that you'd see more of a historic theme, like, I mean, of course, copper, but I know that's not obtainable, but something of that look, of that half-round gutter system. We're trying to hide them as much as we can and try to get away from what you'd see on a house, like a K gutter is what you have listed.
Right,
So something more industrial, something a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. I can't
But
tell you
are
what
you
that.
talking about, you want a half-round gutter? I mean, really, you have a choice, a K gutter or a half-round, or then you start going industrial, and I think industrial would be a mistake.
I think so.
I don't know how you feel about going with a half-round.
I mean, at least the drops, because when you see those from the road,
I'm about doing a round drop. I'm happy, we can do a round downspout, that's fine too. I'd rather do a round downspout than to go with the half rounds. I've done the half rounds, those are kind of a maintenance nightmare.
Just something more of a historic feel on the gutter system.
But if going with a round downspout as part of that is enough, I'd be happy to do that.
And there's no overhead utilities, right? No overhead power? Power coming to the buildings underground? Okay.
And there's no sales.
Yeah.
No sales.
No sales.
No car sales.
With one freighter bollard.
Good one.
So, do we have a?
I think we have.
I think you can put Mr. Cook's comments in as a condition.
Right. So we're accepting this elevation for the windows. based
Okay.
on and with the extra detail and the round downspouts.
Okay.
Okay?
Is that a motion?
Well, yeah, and the motion with,
Elevation?
I don't know how many,
100.
yeah.
Which elevation are you saying you're accepting, just for the record?
Well, the
Combination
one
of
that's
the
on the
two.
screen right now, except we're, oh, no, not that one.
The original
Yeah,
one.
I'm sorry, the one we looked at before with the additional,
That's the
That one.
alternate.
that we would accept that and the round downspouts.
With the additional casing and the...
With the additional casing, yeah, that.
But we're doing storefront windows? Or we're not doing storefront windows? We're doing that elevation 100%.
Well, hold on.
And
Right now, the condition reads, minor design adjustments to the windows of the front building elevation. Better reflect the desired, so it's generic, so it's, needs to be a little more specific if you're
Okay,
gonna.
well, let's just, we're talking about the windows having additional trim, casings,
Wider casings,
and
deeper head.
can you create the 3 panes with the storefront that you're working with?
Last thing I thought we were gonna do is on the transom, we were gonna go ahead and do 3 lights on the
Oh,
transom.
okay. All right, that's what we were gonna do. All right. I'm losing the track here myself a little bit, so. Okay, so we'll get the three at the transom, round downspouts, the enhanced trim.
Yes.
Is that it?
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Good. Is there a second?
Second.
Yes, please.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're done here, right? We don't have to come back?
Fall storm or something.
Norm, smile.
You're out. All right.
Director's report? Yeah?
Yes, sir. Hopefully, you've had a chance to look at that. I did send that out yesterday. Just to quickly summarize the report, the Villages of Marshview Landing, when it was originally rezoned in 2004, one of the conditions of the approval read that should the city of Mentor determine in the future that a traffic signal is warranted at the French Boulevard intersection, the installation costs will be equally shared by Whitehall Development Company and the city. Over the course of time, Whitehall was kind of stepped away, and Franklin Development Company took over, finishing off the development. And the development, as you can see in the aerial that I provided, is almost entirely built out. There's only 3 lots left that were vacant, if our area was correct in terms of its date, when it was last updated. And when we reviewed the developer of Franklin Development Company had approached me and asked if there could be some sort of determination made as if there would be a need for this traffic signal in the future because the condition was so open-ended. When we reviewed the minutes from the 2004 Planning Commission meeting at the time of the rezone, there was discussion on evaluating that need in 4 years. However, that 4-year timeline was not carried into the condition. So after speaking with the law director on it, what we did was had an internal discussion at our traffic working group meeting, which consisted of our engineering department, public works, our police department, and fire department. We analyzed whether they felt it was necessary or warranted to install a traffic signal at that intersection of Lake Shore and French Boulevard based on the build-out of the development. And it was unanimously agreed that it was not necessary, not needed.
Okay, so what do you need from us? A vote?
We need you to waive that, by motion, we need you to waive that condition so that it's no longer required.
Generally, we haven't voted at the director's report at these meetings. But since it's a request of the law department, I think we will.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay. So you want to make a motion?
The motion is that the traffic light is not required?
Motion to
Simple
waive
as
the
that?
condition
Waive the condition of the traffic light.
of the need for a traffic light in the
Need for traffic.
future.
Okay.
Number 21.
Condition number 21.
Okay.
Second.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes.
Thank you.
That was under the direction of Mr. Zeman, that we didn't vote it for the director's report information.
Right.
But
That was the outcome of your meeting, right?
Yes. And I have an email to that effect, so.
So there we go.
Okay.
So we're off the hook, so to speak. Okay. You done?
Oh, I'm done.
Spent